Sharon, I was just thinking, we need to have like the bouncy ball chair things, I think just to go with that.
All right, then let's get started. Good morning, and welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files, the series for anyone who manages people, projects, or processes for a living. I am Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am Christian Buckley, founder of Collab Talk, and welcome to another episode where Sharon and I explore leadership topics from the perspective of what not to do.
And today we are tackling a frustration that almost everyone has experienced at some point, digging through endless email threads to find the latest version of something. This episode is called Hunting for Paper Trails in Email Threads, and it's all about the chaos that happens when project documentation lives everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
This is kind of, we get to bridge kind of our worlds here. We're talking about management and leadership stuff. And we also we live in collaboration technology. And so I love that. It's that moment when someone says, check your inbox from 3 months ago. It's still in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere. I mean, exactly. When files are buried in personal drives, inboxes, duplicated, that would never happen. Like never ever happen. Confusion isn't just a possibility, it's a guarantee.
Yeah. It's the costs of this add up, but we talk about this all the time. We're in the SharePoint and Teams, the Microsoft ecosystem with all the collaboration tools. The cost of lost information that's just not there at your fingertips. You want the data, information at the right time, the right place, in context. It forces you, or makes you, I guess, duplicate work. You miss updates. There are decisions that are made without all of the data, all of the facts. And then somebody asks inevitably, like, who changed this? And nobody knows when it was changed, by who, why it was changed to that. Yeah, it's an ongoing big problem.
Yeah, that's definitely the real issue. And ultimately, one of the things I spend a lot of time, training and consulting on, because we talk a lot about the document, Sharon's document, final. No, I swear I made the last updates. Final. Wait, which final version did you use? Right? Because ultimately, without centralized repositories, clear ownership, a plan that everybody follows, the team can lose clarity. So teams end up wasting time searching instead of executing.
Yeah, and it's not just about the convenience. It really is a risk management issue. I mean, sensitive information floating through the email chains. And the trainings that I'm doing right now with customers, going through and doing workshops, I continually harp on this problem of send a link to the centralized location. Do not attach, because I always, the way that I phrase it is, it's your intellectual property. You just sent it out and now somebody else owns it. It's out there. There's another version floating around. And when it's stored in the wrong place, or multiple versions stored in multiple locations, it creates a security issue. There are compliance problems with that. How do you audit that? What's happening with that? Especially if there's sensitive information. Again, corporate intellectual property, IP, that's floating around out there. It's bad.
Yeah, it's definitely the words that will drive me nuts are, I'll send you a copy of that. Please don't send me a copy of it. I don't want another copy of it. Because ultimately, strong project discipline means that you're choosing the right repository, you're setting the right permissions, you're keeping everything current. I know this is what we do for a living. And content management and version control and archiving, it's not the most glamorous job, but it does prevent some costly mistakes.
When your documentation is centralized and it's accessible, and the right people have access to that, and the right metadata is applied to that, the versioning is turned on, all of that, you're tracking. It makes it trackable, auditable, and accessible, and collaborative, all of those things. It actually speeds up your organization. It doesn't slow you down. There's some work up front, but it enables you to be faster further down.
Please hold. I'm looking for the button that has the Hallelujah chorus. Oh no, can't find it
Yeah.
anywhere. All right. Yeah. Ultimately, because a lot of people think organization is bureaucracy, and it's not. It's absolutely not. Real organization is clarity. And ultimately, clarity will save you time, money, and credibility.
As always, this should be a practical conversation. So please, as well, if you're watching, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're not yet following us out on YouTube, as I'll harp on you at the end as well, please click follow, subscribe to us, click the notification bell, where every Monday morning we have these new episodes, but also share your stories. If there's something that is inspiring comes out of this, please comment, let us know. If there's a scenario we've missed, or what we share, our best practices, our experiences, doesn't directly apply, give us those details so that we can expand on. Maybe we'll do another similar, a sister episode that goes and covers those additional scenarios. So happy to do that. Yeah, if you've ever spent an hour hunting for a document that should have taken 10 seconds to find, 5 seconds to find, then this episode's for you for sure.
And all of a sudden, our view count just went way up.
Everybody has that issue, I know.
All right, let's get started with some definitions.
Yeah, I think of this primarily as that habit of storing, sharing files and documents. Let's admit, locally, it's what's easy. It's right there. And so we shoot off an email and we have the conversation over in I'll send Sharon an email. Let's have this important project conversation, when the project discussion is happening over in like Microsoft Teams or in Slack or somewhere else that's an official channel. And so it's not that rarely is this an intentional thing. I think 99.9% of it is just people use the tools that they're familiar with and they have their habits. And I think that's a lot of what causes this problem is people haven't yet made that change. They either don't understand or they're just thinking, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think ultimately it's a mix of people do what they know, and, and they're also going to do what's easy, right? Because everybody only has a limited amount of time and energy. And ultimately, I think if it's something if it's easy for you, you're going to do it. And sometimes you have to retrain those patterns. You have to retrain those behaviors. You have to retrain, where you think something should go or how you should collaborate or communicate, because ultimately you've been doing it this way for so long that you're just used to it. And so you think that it's quicker and easier. But ultimately, maybe sometimes a little tiny change will make things actually a little bit better and a little bit, a little bit more centralized and a little bit more organized.
Sharon and I have both been in this collaboration in the broader information management space for over 30 years each. We've been doing this for a long time.
A few minutes.
And so part of it, I was trying to remember before we started recording, Sharon, like how many times, I think it's 3, have we seen email killer solutions that are like, oh, this is going to no one's going to ever use email again. I think it's 3 times, like major product waves. And what has happened with each of those waves is those new technologies. Think about like Yammer and social collaboration, that side of it. It's just been incorporated in. It's another channel. It didn't replace anything. It's just another channel. It's made it more diffused. But email has lived on. And so, I just said the email, it's fantastic for its uses, but you need to be careful in how you're using, especially sharing information and creating another siloed discussion. Email feels convenient in the moment, but every attachment you send creates another copy. There's another version, another potential fork in reality. And I'm thinking like Marvel Universe, it's creating this parallel universe there. That's how projects slowly lose that single source of truth that we all strive for.
Now, and I'm going to bring this up because the point and the topic of this conversation today is essentially not being able to find things because you don't have a system that you're following. And to be fair, back in the day, a lot of people used shared inboxes or shared mailboxes or public folders or something like that as that way of organizing things. Right. And if you are doing that, we're not saying that that's a bad way of doing that. What we are saying is everybody needs to be storing, sharing, managing, collaborating, communicating in the same way. Right. And there are ways that have been kind of tried and true for a long time. There are new modern opportunities. So we think about things like SharePoint, or we think about things like Teams, and social media has all kinds of different ways of doing things. We have the entire Viva, set of different tools that they've got. And I think there are all kinds of different ways to do it. But ultimately, we are not saying email is bad. What we are saying is having a system and everybody being on the same page is what needs to happen. And if you think that email is the only way of doing that, you're probably missing the mark and you're digging through way too many emails.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I say that email is not dead. It hasn't been replaced. But for a lot of what we're doing, there are better ways of doing that. I mean, one thing, like I just did this yesterday, where I sent out I sent an email to an external audience, so a number of different people, and rather than attaching, I sent a link to a shared location, actually in this case, a folder, because there's multiple documents going into that. And so here's what I did, Sharon. I put an expiration date on this because a week past the delivered, in case things change, and I can always reset that. I then can see, and I have it sitting out in OneDrive, I can see who has accessed that, who I've given permissions to. I'm sending out to named individuals, whether they've been in there and editing. We can co-edit live, but it's always the same version of the document. So nothing is lost there. And that is critical for this effort. Give them access. One, that I think the smaller of the files was 8. What was it? It was massive. It was too big for our email to send as an attachment anyway, through the thresholds we allowed. Yeah. But this got past it easily. So they could download it. They could edit it in its cloud location without even downloading it.
Yeah. Well, I just love that, because, I mean, as we kind of start moving towards, talking about some of the impacts of what this problem can bring, you're bringing up exactly that, right? It's the idea of, do I have the right thing? Am I wasting time looking for the right version of something? Because how many times does somebody email and then they email you 14 more times? They're like, wait, we made an update. Nope, made another update. Oh, wait, I took another look at that. Oh, did you make a change? And 14 times later, you're like, okay, which copy am I even supposed to be working on? As opposed to, no matter what, if I go through all these emails, the link is the link is the link is the link is the link, and the link is going to go back to exactly the right thing. We all know we're working on the same version. We're not duplicating effort, and we know it's the right document.
And the real cost, we're talking about, the impacts to this. The real cost of a scattered documentation, it's not just about the wasted time of going and digging and searching, and that's frustrating in and of itself. No, but it's about the decision quality. Am I even working from the latest data? So when teams aren't sure which version is current, they start making more cautious, I'd say slower, even sometimes wrong decisions. And so that's the real impact. How do you measure the cost of that? It's like, well, that's where go back to risk management, Sharon. You're entering unnecessary risk into the system by having it sloppy and spread out.
Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, this can manifest itself in all kinds of ways. I know I am constantly, sending stuff over for things like proposals or updates, or, we do a lot of training. So we have outlines and curriculum and things like that. And it's everything from risking the job that you're doing, right? Am I even doing the right thing? All the way to, we can get into way more intense risks, like, were the numbers correct? Or did we have the right calculations? Or did we send it to the right place? Like, there's all kinds of risks that come into fact. And the more that those risks start showing themselves, the more you have to end up spending time, not just to resend it, but to make sure that you're spending that time to figure out that you're sending the right thing. So now think about all that wasted time and effort that is on top of all of those risks that are happening.
Yeah. I had to think of a very real scenario. Might be, too close to home for some folks, but of the client signed the agreement with the wrong scope in it. It was the outdated. It didn't have any of the updated numbers from the team. Not that it ever happens, but again, because you had two parallel threads where the updated scope in one and then what the client actually had access to. And we just kept sending they got the right link. It was the wrong version on the right link in that one location. And so, yeah, you can have a lot of these issues. It's also, it impacts accountability. No one, it's easy when no one knows where that official record really lives. That's where accountability starts to fade. Everybody can lean on I thought you had it. You can actually hide a legit screw up, like I messed up, but that can become part of kind of the accountability, the lack of accountability in the organization, where people know if something goes wrong, I can always blame it on our lack of process and lack of clarity. And so not that people will do that on purpose, but it makes it more difficult to see, hey, did the process fail or did somebody actually screw up?
Well, yeah. And ultimately, the more that happens, the more that those workarounds become normal. Because if I know where the right thing is and it's easy for me to do the right thing, I will. But if I don't know, or it's difficult and I have to jump through too many hoops to do the right thing, to give the right thing, to send the right thing, to find the right thing, I'm going to figure out easy workarounds. And the one that I see from an example perspective for exactly this topic is templates, right? How many places have formalized templates that they've probably paid a lot of money and put a lot of time and energy to make sure those templates are correct? And ultimately, if it's too hard or too difficult or too, complex or confusing for me to find and use a template, I'm going to just copy the most recent one that I have access to, whether or not it's the right thing. And then I'm just going to copy, paste, and tweak and send that on out the door. And ultimately, this kind of way of working around processes just becomes more and more and more normal.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with going and pulling in, like I do with the show notes as we prep for these, where I copy the last one, I paste the one in there, then we go in and we update that. But which has happened once or twice is where I don't replace all the old notes from it. And suddenly Sharon and I looking at it's like, well, that doesn't look right while we're in there trying to do the live show. But aside from that, we've gone past
the percentage is low because we're working in a collaborative space and we know where we're going.
But the problem with that too is that it's more difficult then to optimize and make change if you're just copying from the old. I mean, I think this is a tremendous opportunity, and I know we'll get into this in kind of solutions and best practices. But one of the biggest pitfalls is duplicating work. So it's not allowing you're going and copying from the past instead of looking at what have we learned, what have we improved on that. There's a huge opportunity for organizations to go in and say and automate around something like this. Build the template, make it, maybe it's just messy because it's so manual for those templates. Train people on that, automate as much as possible to make it easy for them to input the new, leveraging those best practices. Then everybody it's consistent. It's saved in the right place at the same place. As you make improvements to the template, it's automatically reflected. So future projects aren't borrowing bad practices from past projects.
Yep. I 100% agree. So let's stay on the what not to do path, and then we'll get back to the fixing it later. But if we keep going down this and we start talking about, some of the major dangers. So we've talked about the risks and we've kind of talked about some of the impacts, but like, what's the really bad stuff?
Well, the number one for me, it's not the inconvenience that, going and finding stuff buried in email. It's that it makes problems. It makes things invisible. I have absolutely no idea what Sharon, that other thread that for some reason I wasn't included on. And even if you down the thread, somebody realizes, oh, Christian wasn't in that, and I get CC'd in there, doesn't guarantee that I'm going to be meticulous, because we're all busy, to read back through every email in the thread to go and find that other nugget that's important there. So when decisions live inside of email specifically, I know we're talking, there could be other silos as well, or out on personal drives elsewhere. The problem is that institutional knowledge disappears. If I'm spending all my time trying to bring it in, create those templates, centralize the location, all those different pieces, and then work is being done outside of that, then we're not learning. And that person that was really bad at using the centralized location and everything's an email, they leave, and a lot of that institutional knowledge goes out the door with them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely think that's a big piece of it. I also, I really think some of the biggest pitfalls and the biggest issues of, not having a system of some sort, especially I would recommend and encourage a modern-based system because it's a little bit easier, is ultimately that, like you said, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. But one of the things that I think about from a risk perspective is how many different parts and pieces we end up with. And ultimately, as we start to think about storage costs and compliance risks and regulatory risks and audit risks, I just really do not think that a lot of, especially enterprise businesses, understand that this, like you said, it's not just an inconvenience. These are things that ultimately, when people are like making decisions and keeping track of those decisions, when people are maybe, coming up with anything from a formula to an analysis to any part of their business where it's going to end in a result or a decision that has some level of policy or regulatory compliance around it, that could ultimately sabotage their entire business. And I think there's a bigger risk around this than people want to give it credit for. People want to say, what I hear a lot is, oh, Sharon, that's just, it's no big deal if I just have to copy and paste. It's no big deal if I have to go somewhere else. It's no big deal if I have to collaborate in another space. They're not putting the parts and pieces together for what that can ultimately turn into if they don't.
Yep. Yeah, I think I just, a thought came in mind too, that is just around like data breaches.
Exactly.
Most data breaches are not some, a dubious person outside the organization hacking in, stealing the information. There's a lot of that goes on. That's not most of it is. Most of it are good people doing their jobs in a sloppy way.
Exactly.
And they send too much. They leave something open. Even in my scenario of sending it as a link, and I'm careful to go in and look at, are the right permissions? Are the right people? Putting a time bomb on it, like it's only available for the next 3 days because it's a quick collaboration. So I don't forget, and then it ends there. It closes off their access to it. Did I accidentally give them access to my entire shared drive and all that information, or just that file that I meant to go and send? Things like that. And so this is one of the major pitfalls is on that sensitive information. Who has it? Who has access to that? Do I have control over it? When I just had this experience about a week ago where I sent to a friendly client, but I sent a link to a folder and I got the setting wrong. And they right away, they responded and said, yeah, I see more than I'm supposed to see.
That's a nice client.
There was nothing in it. Yeah. They saw a bunch of other training does. There's just nothing, But I was like, oops, it immediately went in there and changed the permissions, and made one change, fixed it. Like hey, you now only see exactly what I sent. So I was lucky in that, but those are the kinds of mistakes had there been sensitive information there, which I would have never sent out a link to a location that also had like customer or partner, sensitive information in.
Well, that's because you know better.
Is everybody as thoughtful as me? I'm thinking no.
I definitely think people send out stuff all the time and they don't think about what's in it, right? Yep. Well, and maybe you send out an email and it's got information in it and you're like, well, it's okay because the person I sent it to, it's totally fine. But I mean, that email could totally get forwarded, or it could get spammed somewhere. It could be, it could be intercepted somehow. Like there's all kinds of ways that information, unless if you're using encrypted, secured channels and things like that, it's one thing. But I mean, at the end of the day, like if you don't know that you're using the right things from the right place with some level of security around it, who knows? Who knows what you're sending to the wrong person?
I'm thinking on the positive side of things. I mean, I've also seen, and we were talking a lot of nightmare scenarios, and I think we need to jump down in strategies.
You think we should give them some like peace of mind?
I think one, I mean, I've seen this personally where like the moment that a team commits to a real single source of truth, where meetings got shorter. Everyone had access to that. I would say it was like there's a dashboard summary. Everybody knew where to go to get like this is the version of the truth, and meetings got shorter, decisions got faster, and the level of anxiety over that dropped immediately. And so I think that one of the truest statements is that having an organization over your content is leverage, period. It allows you to go and say like, no, this is the latest update. You don't need to chase me down to update my status. The latest version is what's in the location. You have all of the latest. And once the trust builds, the confidence is there, and people like it clicks with people. They start to understand that.
In fact, this is the reason I got into SharePoint. I was actually doing a contract as an analyst, and I had a spreadsheet that I had to do UAT with one of the stakeholders, and I was on floor 1 and she was on like floor 3 or 4. And the stairs were closer than the elevator, unfortunately. And so ultimately I would do my work. Wait, Christian, I would print the spreadsheet. I would take the spreadsheet. I would walk up 3 flights of stairs. I would walk over to her desk. We would sit, go through the test cases. She would give me her notes. I would walk back downstairs, go to my computer and enter all those notes. I would then do the same thing. And then I would go back up and then, and we would call each other and things like that. But ultimately what ended up happening is like, we were constantly running back and forth. And then this thing came out called SharePoint. And they were like, hey, Sharon, you should look into this. You would love it. It came with TFS. And they were like, you could store your stuff in it. And it had this thing called alerts. And what could happen is every time she would put her spreadsheet in the folder and update it, I would get a little alert that would say, hey. And so we didn't have to run back up and down, up and down the stairs. The whole reason I got into SharePoint was because of this exact situation where we were constantly having to communicate and collaborate in the real world. And ultimately, she could put it in, I would get notified, I would do my part, I would put it in, she would get notified, she would do her part, and, the rest is history. So, I mean, if you don't believe in a collaboration system of any sort, and you don't understand what modern tools are yet, they can legitimately save you time and frustration.
Yeah, I like this too. I mean, if everything is everywhere, then nothing is reliable. And so one of the things that I'm going to say it again, Sharon, we always talk about like the recommendations are always like audit your process, understand what things are looking like today. But a big part of this is training people on this. So to go and map out where everything lives and here's why we do it this way, and show them like here's example after example of duplicate repositories, and here's how we get around this, and train people on that. But it starts by mapping that out. Where do your artifacts actually live? And most teams are shocked when they realize how fragmented things really are. the important for continual education, and it takes coaching. It takes we always refer to it as like as a community management aspect of collaboration. It's ongoing. You redirect people. I used to do this, and my team hated it. I would say it's like training a puppy. You know, it doesn't make sense if they peed on the floor to come back a week later, a day later, and smack them. They were like, "What did I do?" kind of thing. You catch them in the act and smack them right then. And I remember one of my direct reports is like, "So were the puppies peeing on the floor?" I'm like, "In some ways, you know." Yeah, that was fun. But the example is where we had centralized everything in SharePoint. You've heard me tell this story before. We had dashboards, we had all the reporting, all in that repository, but we couldn't seem to get people to go to the location. We would email them summaries with all the links back to SharePoint where they could get all of the documents, all the files, all of that. So what did we do? We moved to where we put it all on a whiteboard. I printed things out, like your printouts, took them to the managers that weren't reading stuff. And I remember the director was so happy with what we were doing and the reports, and her feedback was like, "This would be fantastic if we could move it all to SharePoint," if you remember. And I didn't tell her that it had already been there. I just said, "That's a great idea."
Great idea.
And then like 3 days later, we went and everything's in SharePoint now. It's like, wow.
You are fast.
We were on top of it though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think having everything, I think it's just as important to have everything organized, again, like you said, as it is for everybody to buy into where that organization lives, because ultimately you can have the absolute best, most mature, most stellar organization on the planet. But if your team doesn't understand how it's set up or why it's set up that way or how to use it, or if it's too complex for them to understand, like you have to have them bought in. But truthfully, if you have a repository system that makes sense and they buy into it, it will bring everybody a lot of clarity.
You can spend, a half a day, go in, document, like, this is the way that we work. Mm-hmm. I say this all the time. It just sounds so fundamental, but you document what this process is and why. In a little doc, it could be digital, whatever, but as part of that training, it's like, look, this is the way that we do this. So if somebody, people will slip back in their habits, and you go and say, "Hey, are we adhering to this? Is everything in the shared location?" And people go flip back to that and be like, "Here's the steps. So I do this first." Again, automation, a little bit of automation, it does a lot. So you're not asking people to add 50 different tags and do all these different steps to get things into the system so it's found the right way. Automate as much as possible, and then just redirect when you see a conversation happening in the wrong chat, or a one-on-one chat rather than the channel over in Teams, or an email thread discussion that should have been over here, or a file sent as attachment instead as a link back to that one source. You don't just snap on, like yell at that person for that. You say, "Hey, I see you doing this. We need to redirect that."
Yep. Great job. Can you put that over there in the channel, please?
This looks great, but it needs to be over within this location so that everybody has access to it. And so that's what it is. You document it. You choose the right location, that repository, document what the process is, and then train people and be consistent on that process.
The other thing is, if you train people to be consistent on that process and everybody does it that way, then everybody does it that way. And then everybody kind of supports each other and they remind each other. And it's like, "Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me," right? We're all kind of supporting each other to have everything in the same place because we all want it to stay neat and tidy and organized.
I think, being secure, being conscientious about how we're communicating, how we're collaborating. Security and collaboration, they're not enemies. You can do both. The strongest environments have clear permissions. They keep work discoverable. Governance is a huge part of that. And governance should enable speed. It shouldn't suffocate it. If you're spending too much time policing and getting people to use it, you can pause and look at, is it too complex? Are there too many steps? Is it too big of a change? Is there a different way that we should approach this overall? But establish those best practices, document that, and then standardize as much as you can with that, and then train people on that, give them the room to go and use that process. That's what is going to be repeatable. That's what's going to slowly stick. That's the easiest way to make change happen, and then stay on top of that, be consistent.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I do entire training sessions on how to manage that. And I only have two quick things for this: is use roles and groups as much as possible. Do everything you can to avoid unique and granular permissions.
Yes.
If you can use roles and groups, your lives are going to be a bazillion times easier.
Yep.
And I agree with you. Like, don't over restrict collaboration, right? Make sure that people have access to what they need. And if for whatever reason you're like, well, I need a document to live here, but that person shouldn't be in the group, well, then maybe that document shouldn't live in that group to begin with, right? It kind of gives you really great boundaries to kind of think about that, because ultimately you want your governance to be a very nice balance of usability and security.
Right. Yeah, I think as a call to action on this, what can people go and do? I mean, one, you're not going to eliminate the overuse of the improper use of email overnight, but you could start with a simple policy. If you have your single point of truth, that repository that's the primary place. So if it's your SharePoint intranet, or it's Microsoft Teams or some other platform, great, you identify that. And then you create a policy around like training and awareness. Do it almost like a PSA. You could even, in an office environment, have little mini posters of attach as a link, not as an attachment kind of things. Those reminders. You can actually set that up in Exchange. So by default, it attaches as a link, and it will prompt people. So they have to consciously choose to attach it. You don't want to turn off the ability to attach it, but you could, by reducing the size of file size, increase the restrictions on that. There are things that you could do that are more stick than carrot. That's one way. But I think that would be probably the best call to action, is to go in, start a PSA for links, not attachments, and start there.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're a project manager or a process manager or a document manager or content manager, any of those types of things, and you're responsible for keeping track of all of the wrangling of the information, it's okay to act a little bit like a hall monitor and remind people where things should go. Again, in a nice way, but I think having the ownership over the content and making sure people are putting it in the right place will probably bring you a lot of clarity and a lot of peace.
I know that this sounds like a small thing. You might be thinking like replacing, an attachment habit in email with a shared link. It sounds like a small thing, but that one behavior shift, it really will start rewiring your culture towards one of collaboration and clarity of where information lives. So it's a massive step in changing culture.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I appreciate everybody for sitting through this episode. And Sharon, as always great to have these conversations. And I know that we'll be back next Monday again at 9 a.m. Pacific, every Monday for the rest of our lives. We will be there. If you're not yet following us, go over to YouTube /at Project Failure Files. You can find us out there. We've got the newsletter now out on Substack as well. You can find us. We've got a page that I occasionally add to out on LinkedIn as well. You can find us in multiple places, but please subscribe. Let us know your thoughts. Which episode was your first? What you enjoy, what topics you'd like to hear us talk about. So I think our list currently, Sharon, is going to put us well beyond 2026. So I think we're into mid 2027 with the current list of topics. But we're always happy to prioritize new ideas that come in. So love to hear from folks.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.